entire canvas fill பண்ணோம், which is called rejection. So on the black backdrop we are going to paint the beautiful picture of Bethany. So last week வந்து கொஞ்சம் டார்க்கா, லாஸ்ட் டைம் டார்க்கா இருந்ததுக்கு காரணம் it was meant to be like that. We wanted to focus on rejection. We wanted to set the canvas up, and now we will look into every day we will try to look into one passage, one portion that happened in Bethany, and we will learn something from that passage. So Bible in the Luke 10:32 to 42 is our passage for today. There's so much to learn, so we will just quickly move on. Stuart. Okay. 38th verse என்ன சொல்லுதுன்னா, a certain woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. So the first character of Bethany is a place where Jesus is welcome. A place where Jesus is welcome. இதுக்கு கொஞ்சம் முன்னாடி Jesus was rejected in Samaria. So he is coming out of that and he is entering Bethany, and immediately he receives a warm welcome. Thank God for Marthas who welcome Jesus. So most of us will say that we have already welcomed Jesus into our lives. So how I will just touch upon 3 points on how to properly welcome Jesus. The first point is welcoming the whole Christ. So we in Christianity we have different versions of Christ. We have the miracle worker Christ, we have the Savior Christ, we have the healing Christ, and so many different Christ. And we also have the teachings of Jesus, which are very hard to understand and hard to follow. So we can become a person who is really picking and choosing the Jesus that we want to follow. Stanley Jones says this beautiful quote. This quote is from Stanley Jones. He says, a reduced Christ is the same as a rejected Christ. So most of us have not rejected Christ, but we have reduced him to our imagination or our understanding. So we want Christ to behave in certain way based on our denomination, based on our family that gives us Christ. So our family has given some part of Christ which they understood. In order to properly welcome Jesus, we need to accept the whole of him. Meaning sometimes it would be difficult for us to follow his teachings. Denying yourself, loving your enemies. And we need to accept Christ with all that we understand and all that we don't understand. But this is the first thing. The second thing to properly welcome Jesus is to receive all who are part of him. Imagine when Martha welcomed Jesus, with Jesus came 12 disciples. So Martha is not only cooking food for Jesus, she is cooking food for 12 more people, which is, if you are in a family, it is very difficult. So you welcome Jesus and he brings 12 of his friends into your home and you are preparing food. So with Jesus comes his own disciples. The followers of Christ come with Jesus. So when we receive Jesus, we also have to receive all the followers of Christ, whole body of Christ, and which is something we don't like. We want to be very comfortable, but Jesus brings his friends along. And maybe Martha liked Peter because he was like Martha, and she might have not liked John because he was very quiet. And there are different disciples in the list of 12, right? They all were very difficult. Thomas would have doubted the healing of Simon the leper. He would have asked and said, நீங்க திருப்பி வேணா ஒரு தடவை செக் பண்ணிக்கிறீங்களா, உண்மையாவே சைமன் த லெப்பர் ஹீல் ஆயிட்டாரா அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு. பிகாஸ் தாமஸ் டவுட் பண்ணியிருக்கலாம். James and John வந்து யாராவது அகேன்ஸ்டா பேசினா we will burn them down சொல்ற attitude உள்ள ஆட்கள். So the disciples of Jesus are not like Jesus. They are broad spectrumல நல்ல பீட்டர்ல இருந்து ஆரம்பிச்சு சைலண்ட் ஒன் ஜான் வரைக்கும் வெரைட்டி ஆஃப் டிசைபிள்ஸ் இருக்காங்க. ஸோ வி cannot just say ஒன்று 6 பேரை மட்டும் தான் நான் உள்ள விடுவேன், எனக்கு பிடிச்ச கேரக்டர்ஸ் உள்ள 6 பேரை நான் உள்ள விடுவேன்னு சொல்ல முடியாது. When we welcome Jesus, we welcome everybody, people who are not perfected, who have their own flaws, and still we welcome them into our home. So that is how we welcome Jesus properly. Jesus says, "He who receives you receives me." Right? The third way to properly welcome Jesus is to give him the first place. The lordship of Jesus, which includes, it affects you. So priority in the word order, the better word would be centrality of Jesus. So when it comes to priority, we say our Jesus முடிச்சுட்டு we go on to the lower issues மாதிரி நமக்கு தோணலாம். So when you call it centrality, it becomes he is in the center of your life and he affects every area of your life. So we need to give Jesus the center place, because when he comes, he does not come as a guest, he comes as a family. He wants to settle down in your home, in your heart, in your community. So when Jesus is around, you cannot just keep on doing things which you used to do. And in order for Jesus to settle down in your life, he must become the central person in your life. If he is the central person in your life, then you have welcomed him properly. It's not about just sins, it is the centrality of Christ that is at stake here. So 3 ways to properly welcome Jesus. 1, you welcome him as a whole. Second, you welcome him as the disciples who come with Jesus. And thirdly, you welcome and give him the centrality in your home, right? So that is how we make our home and our lives better. So this is about welcoming Jesus. The second point that we can learn is from Mary, who sat at the feet of Jesus. Okay, so when we talk about feet of Jesus, this is an interesting study that you can do. If you follow just the feet of Jesus throughout the Gospels, right? Or you follow the hands of Jesus throughout the Gospels, or you follow the eyes of Jesus throughout the Gospels. These are interesting things that you will understand about what he does, what he sees, whom he touches, and all these things can give us more information about Jesus. So regarding the feet, I want to highlight just 4 points. There are so much with respect to the feet of Jesus, but 4 points for us to remember is, his feet is a place of healing. Matthew 15:30 says, they brought every sick people and laid them at his feet. So at the feet of Jesus, there is healing. We bring our problems and disease and lay it down. So that is something that is available at the feet of Jesus. Secondly, it is a place of love and gratitude. We remember an incident where a woman prostitute who falls at the feet of Jesus, weeps at the feet of Jesus. And Jesus says, because she is forgiven more, she loves me more. So in order to love Jesus and show our gratitude, we come to the feet of Jesus. So his coming to his feet can mean to express our love to him, to show our thankfulness and the healing that he has done, in forgiveness that he has provided. The third is, coming to the feet of Jesus is a sign of a healed person. எல்லாருக்கும் இந்த இன்சிடென்ட் தெரியும். Mark 5ல வந்து we know about the demon possessed man. He was uncontrollable. He could not control himself. He could not sit in a place properly. Others could not control him. But once Jesus drove away the demons in him, we see that people came and saw that he was sitting at the feet of Jesus, sitting in his right mind. When we are in our right mind, a healed person would always want to sit at the feet of Jesus. We will not be running along here and there. So if you are really healed, then you will want to sit at the feet of Jesus, because Many people do not sit at the feet of Jesus because they are not healed. And thankfully, we are all healed in a sense. We want to sit at the feet of Jesus. The final thing is from our passage, which says it's a place for a disciple. So sitting at someone's feet is a place becoming a disciple of them. So we sit, listen, and learn from our master. So sitting at the feet of Jesus means that we are learners. In order to love somebody, we need to be listening, right? So listening as a way of hospitality. Martha was showing a different kind of hospitality. Mary was showing her hospitality with her ears. If you want to love someone so dearly, you have to listen to them. That's one way to honor them, to respect them, to love them. We need disciples who will be good listeners. We have a lot of speakers. We have a lot of people who speak, but we need good people who will listen. And Jesus says, my sheep will listen to my voice. He does not say, my sheep will speak my words, because that will come later. But first, you have to be a person who is able to listen to the voice of Jesus. Sometimes listening speaks far more powerfully than talking ever could. And if you want to love somebody, listen to them for a long time so that you will understand them. We need somebody to open a listening ministry so that they will just listen to people, not speaking ministry. A disciple means a learner, and to learn, you first have to listen. Bethany is a place where Jesus is listened to. His words are central to our lives. So if you have a listening life with Jesus, then you are in Bethany. So we move on. Tomatis is a doctor. Once they brought a very good singer to him, and they said, this person is not able to sing a few notes. So Tomatis, he observed and he analyzed, and he came to the conclusion that because the singer is not able to listen to those notes, he had selective hearing. So because she is not able to hear those notes, she is not able to reproduce those notes. So I think we might have a Tomatis spiritual effect. The reason that our voices are not powerful is because our ears are not hearing what it should hear. We have a selective hearing problem with spiritual in our churches or in our community or in our own life, because we don't want to hear a few things. Because we are not good listeners, we are only producing the voices that we listen to. Some of us are not able to reproduce the notes that God wants us to sing in, because we are not able to even listen to that notes. We need a cleaning or a healing in our ear. In the US, there is a place, US Capitol building, where the parliamentarians meet. And there is a spot called Whispering Spot. If you stand in this spot in that entire building, wherever the sound comes from, you will be able to listen to. So the person can be in the other side of the building and just whispering, but you will be able to listen to that. So you have to be in that spot to do that. Spiritually speaking, we need to have our own whispering spots, because we live in an age where we have too many voices, too many noises. In car la try opening the window when the music is on. You will not be able to listen to the music properly because the windows are open. Some of our lives can be like that because too many windows are open. It can be even Zoom windows and other windows that we see online. Because too many windows are open, we have that white noise and we don't hear the music of God. We don't hear the voice of God. So, is God's whisper the loudest voice in your life? Whisper is nothing but, if you, in order to hear a whisper, you have to come closer to that person, right? You cannot just stand far and listen to him. So listening to God's whisper is an intimate moment. You have to come closer to God, and that's when you will listen his breath or his whisper. Listen to him in your quiet times. That most of us would do. When we open the Bible, we are listening to God. But it is also listening to our loud times. Once we walk out of our door every day, we still have that listening attitude in us, where our ears are still open to what God has to say. So it is not only during your time with God, but the whole day you have this listening attitude and you live a listening life. Usually I ask a question about who is the most intelligent person that you know to Christian students, and they immediately they say Einstein or somebody, but it is never Jesus, because we think Jesus is the head of religion department and he is not intelligent in other areas. But Jesus is the master of all. He knows everything, every subject that you are working on, everything that you are thinking about, every relationship that you are in. So you can talk to Jesus and listen to him the whole day, no matter what area you are working in and whom you are talking to. And he is the expert in all. When we have that attitude, we can always listen to Jesus. The words listen and obey have the same root word in Latin, in Greek, in Hebrew. It's all the same. So it can be used interchangeably. Biblically speaking, to hear and not to do is not to hear at all. When we say our children do not hear, listen to us, we mean that they do not obey, right? So listening is complete when you start to obey. It is not just you hear something. Your life is a listening life when you are walking in the words of Jesus. That's when you are truly listening to Jesus. Yeah. So this is Martha, who is busy cooking for Jesus. She's busy with too many things and too many people because she invited Jesus. But she was concerned with many things. That's what Jesus tells us. He was worried about so many things. The word for worry in the original language means it comes from two words, which basically means to have a divided mind or a divided life. Right? The reason that we worry so much is because we are fixed our eyes on too many things. And in Martha's case, it was ministry to Jesus. Ministry to Jesus was something that was competing with in Martha's life instead of sitting at the feet of Jesus. So sometimes ministry can become our idol. It can be our false God. And we would frantically run around doing a lot of things, but still divided in our heart. And Jesus would have to call us and say, you are worried about too many things. So what happens when you worry about too many things? Martha criticized Mary and said Mary has left her to do the job alone. So people with the criticizing spirit are people with a divided life, a divided mind. So they are constantly trying to criticize others. They think that others are the reason for their problem. So Martha thinks Mary is her problem, but ultimately she is her own problem. She is divided. Her attention is divided. Ministry versus Jesus. And assuming Jesus agrees with her analysis, she just assumes that Jesus agrees to her observation. So she comes and complains to Jesus, and sometimes we think that Jesus agrees to whatever we think when we have a divided life, divided mind. And she's even angry with Jesus for not doing it. She says, "Do you not care?" is how she starts the sentence. So she's even questioning the care of Jesus. So people who are angry with Jesus, who assume that Jesus thinks in their lines and think about others as their problem, and they are criticizing always, those are the divided minds. Those are the divided lives. But Mary does not answer Martha. She is still silent. In Bethany, when criticized, we don't defend ourselves. Some of us have been defending our own selves constantly, and we are so tired. We want to give an explanation for everybody, to everybody about everything. But Mary is still silent and not defending herself. So she is so secure in her identity. She just loves being around Jesus, and she just doesn't fight back. So Mary's silence is something what we can learn and understand, that when we are criticized by divided people, we would just be silent, because we are not divided. We are one thing people. That is how we learn from Mary in the next point. So Mary, Jesus says, chose one thing. One thing is needed, and Mary has chosen the good path. Mary is a one thing person. Her focus and attention is not divided. It is just on one thing or one person. Purity of heart is to will one thing. I think this sentence, this quote, the author might have taken it from James 4 and verse 8. It says, "Purify your heart, you divided in your heart," or something like that. A divided heart is what you need to be pure of. So when you say holiness, when you say purity, it means you are a one thing person. You just want one person, Jesus. You just want his words. You don't want to listen to him. So if you are just one thing person, then you will always be relaxed. You will not defend. David also says this in Psalms 27. One thing I ask of the Lord is to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord. So dwell in his house and to gaze upon the beauty. That is what we are called for. The problem is sometimes we can become too worried about our rewards in Christian life. One person said to me, "I'm so happy that I would get a lot of rewards when I go to heaven." But that is a divided heart, because our only reward is Christ himself. You don't need anything more than that. All other rewards makes no sense to us, because we have Christ fully when we meet him. So sometimes focusing on rewards or focusing on punishments, some people live a good life, try to live a good life because they don't want to go to hell. That is again a divided heart. Its focus is not on Jesus. They are not running to someone, they are running away from something. So a person who is focused on Jesus doesn't worry about the rewards. He just wants Jesus and Christ alone. That is how we love Jesus with all of our being. In Song of Solomon, we have this verse which says, "You have dove's eyes." Dove's eyes, they say, dove can look at only one thing at a time. It is not like human eye. So when you say that you have dove's eyes, it means that you are looking at only one thing, that you are focusing on only one thing. So I pray that we would have the dove's eyes, because we have the Spirit of God who helps us to focus on Jesus and only Jesus. Paul also used this one thing language, where he said, "I lose everything else so that I might gain Christ." I'm ready to lose everything else. I'm ready to say that everything is a garbage compared to having the knowledge of Christ. So we just have to be focused on one thing. And finally, in Bethany, we just focus on one thing, which is Jesus and his words, and we listen. And finally, Jesus says, Martha, Martha, you are worried about too many things. The problem with Jesus is he points your problem out. He says, this is your problem. Sometimes we just, when people come to us, we don't point the problem. We are very diplomatic in our answer. But Jesus is very straight. He says, Martha, you are criticizing Mary, you are criticizing me, but the problem is this, and he puts his finger right on the problem. And that can happen when you follow Jesus. That can happen when you follow Jesus. He would constantly put his finger on your life and say, this is your problem. This is not their problem. This is not my problem. This is what you have to change. And the passage ends with no answer from Martha, which is very interesting because Martha is not like Mary. She wants to talk her mind out, but there is no answer from Martha. And in the next meal that she is doing for Jesus, still Mary is at the feet of Jesus, and we don't see Martha rushing out of the kitchen and complaining. We see that Martha has somehow changed because of the words of Jesus. So she is not defending herself. She is ready to change when Jesus points out. So just to conclude, in Bethany, we receive the whole Jesus. In Bethany, we make listening to Jesus our priority throughout the day. And in Bethany, we make just one thing our focus, which is Jesus himself. And in Bethany, we don't defend ourselves. We allow Jesus to respond for us. And in Bethany, when Jesus points our problem, we are humble enough to say, I'm sorry, I will change. And we show character transformation each time Jesus visits us. So that's what we can learn from this passage. Over to you, Stuart.